Hello, and welcome to the official Hacks podcast from HBO Max and Same Boat Studios. I'm Paul W. Downs, co-showrunner and co-creator of Hacks.
And he's Jimmy.
And I also play Jimmy Lusac Jr., manager and 6'4" hunk to Deborah Vance and Ava Daniels. Joining me are the other brilliant Hacks showrunners and creators, and two people who are desperately trying to get out of their pickleball memberships, Jen Statsky and Lucia Aniello.
Hello.
Hi, I would never play pickleball. I'm a tennis girl.
Oh, yeah. Lucia is really anti-pickleball.
And later we'll be joined by a very special guest, the one, the only Adam Bricker, who has been our director of photography since the very beginning. Shot every single episode of Hacks.
Wonderkind.
Cinematographer, ASC.
Episode 8 is titled The Cube. It was written by Genevieve Aniello and Jess Dweck and directed by Lucia Aniello. This episode starts off with Deborah and her team brainstorming ideas for her MSG show.
Then I rise from the coffin into the air, decked out in a custom Schiaparelli ball gag and straitjacket.
Deborah's reminded that she needs to worry less about sequin coffins and ball gags and focus on how she's going to announce her show.
It's not your safety I'm worried about. We need an audience. We need butts and seats.
Of course, of course.
Deborah enlists the help of a magician and a giant cube over the Las Vegas Strip to ensure that her MSG show is a hit and sells out.
I'm sorry, I just don't get how this is going to help you sell tickets.
Because my hologram's going to be wearing a T-shirt that says MSG 9/11. Tickets on sale now.
Meanwhile, Jimmy and Kayla are given an ultimatum and have to make a big decision about the future of their agency.
Yeah, you have a brainworm, honey, because we're not doing that. Not after all the blood, sweat, and tears I put into that company.
Wait, we'll think about it.
What?
Some real high highs and low lows for our characters this episode.
Yeah, a lot going on.
True.
Deborah is at her lowest, even though she's high up in the cube, very high above the Vegas Strip.
And her story ends with having sold it out very, very fast.
Yeah, in under 10 minutes.
Good for her.
Jimmy, on the other hand, after acquiescing and letting his company be absorbed by Latitude, is relegated to the mailroom. It's such a sad moment.
So
The ending
sad.
is so sad.
You
for
know,
Jimmy.
It's crazy how sad that ending makes me.
It makes me really sad, too.
Of course it makes me, but I'm connected. Of course I love Jimmy, but it's also because my husband of 52 years is also playing it. So I feel
Well, you
extra
especially.
sad.
But I will
Yeah.
say, even in the table read, the audience, because we have a large audience,
Yes.
we have executives and crew and guests come and watch the table reads, and there was a very audible, it felt like people really were like audibly reacting to Jimmy being
People were
sent
really
to the
feeling
mailroom.
for Jimmy.
Yeah.
I know. Well, we've seen him he just tries so hard, some Sisyphus-ass shit to be a good guy in this industry, and it's really difficult. And he's getting bowled over by that boulder.
Yeah.
So Jess Dweck and Genevieve Aniello, yes relation, she's my sister, known her the whole time,
The whole time.
have worked on the show since season 1.
Yes.
Yep.
Whenever you need a funnier joke or line or moment, you go to them and they give you 12 of them.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And they did such a good job.
did a
They
great
are so
job.
funny.
And I haven't known Jess Dweck the whole time, a la you and Genevieve, but I have known her since 2011 when we wrote at Late Night with Jimmy Fallon together.
Oh, Late
so
Night
that's 15 years.
And you both are monologue writers?
That's right.
And they
That's
were
right.
both.
Were you rivals?
Yes, I was trying to take her out at every chance I got. No.
Did you instantly like each other? Was it a slow burn? What was
I
the
think
vibe?
we instantly vibed. Yeah,
Okay.
I think we instantly vibed.
That's good. I instantly vibe with Genevieve.
Oh my God, I know. Every person does, though. No offense to you.
I
Like,
know,
of course
I
you
know.
did too.
Yeah,
but like,
yeah,
Genevieve
she
is
not-
a fan favorite no matter where she goes.
I can't walk down the street without somebody coming up to me and saying, "I love your sister."
I know.
I'm told that by every person I've
Yeah.
ever met.
Yes.
For sure.
And, we will get into the technical with Adam Bricker.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of
A
technical.
lot to talk about.
But, I think that this episode is really about like Deborah getting to like a very desperate place with like trying to announce the show and trying to figure out what she can do. The Katya scene was really a fun one to shoot. And, I think there's also like a really interesting introspective moment with Deborah when she's up in the cube and she's really questioning why does she do this to herself.
I've been trying to make my obituary less embarrassing. Now it'll probably say, Deborah Vance died next to a shoe full of her own piss.
At least it's a funnier one.
I've been trying so hard to not seem crazy. Now I seem extra crazy.
she's vulnerable with Ava, which we always like to see. We always like to see it because it didn't used to happen, and now it's happening more and more frequently, which is kind of sweet. It's sweet to watch Ava kind of talk Deborah off a literal ledge.
Yeah. It was a great way to make Deborah slow down and be internal and think about why she was doing what she was doing, why she does what she does, which, as Ava says, is insane.
Deborah, you don't seem crazy. You are crazy.
Hey!
You got in a glass box and you're hanging from the sky above the Las Vegas Strip to promote a comedy show. You're crazy for your work and you will do anything for it. And that is fucking cool.
She does say she wants to go on a vacation with Ava, which is not something that Miss Deborah Vance has ever said before.
And she doesn't really do vacations. She did Singapore, but that was more a veiled crash out.
She was running away from her issues and then finding a way to continue to work and get on stage. It was not a vacation.
And how sweet that when she takes a vacation, she would like to go with Ava.
Well, they've both been working hard for a long time together.
I know.
Yeah,
Ava deserves
it.
Yeah.
What we don't see is that Deborah does get Ava a massage once a week.
Oh.
That's
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Wow. Well, the thing is that she gets Ava a very strong, burly Russian man who does it, who does bending and cracking and twisting.
I love learning new things about the show that I didn't know.
Yes.
Incredible. Yeah. Incredible to find out these little tidbits.
Well, Deborah has a massage room. We all know that.
Well,
sure.
Anybody with taste and money does.
Yes, she has a table. It's really good.
You don't have a Christmas room if you don't have a massage room.
No, you're getting the massage room before the Christmas room.
It goes packages room, then massage room, then Christmas room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this episode also follows Kayla and Jimmy as they deal with the ultimatum given to them by Kayla's dad that they either need to be subsumed by Latitude or deal with a $30 million lawsuit.
Sounds like they should really get subsumed.
Yes. And
they should really be absorbed.
Subsumed they do get.
But not without some doing. I mean, Jimmy has to do some convincing because, Kayla has some history with her dad. Obviously, he's her dad. She's known him since the beginning. And
again,
true. It's a very funny way to describe your relationship with a parent. We have history.
That is actually very funny. But yeah, she doesn't want to do it. She's been under his thumb for so long. He's, I think, infantilizes her in a big way. But as Jimmy points out, with the Latitude name, they're not blacklisted anymore. So it's actually a big benefit for their clients.
And what does Jimmy care about more than anything? His clients, getting his clients work.
What a good guy.
I know.
I mean, he really cares about hunger and homelessness. He does a lot of volunteering, which we don't see. Again, things we don't see.
Of course, yeah.
But yes,
there's just not enough time in a half-hour episode.
That's
to
the thing.
follow
If this
Jimmy
was an
at the
hour,
soup kitchen.
if there was an hour,
yeah.
Or if there were 24 episodes like there used to be of shows, we would definitely see an episode where he's there.
And they call him boss.
Oh, what a guy.
And I think he's hot.
We shot the scene where they're pushing the car in the desert in Las Vegas, I think in late January, and it was 30 degrees. It was very cold.
No?
At least, maybe 28 degrees, but it was really, really, and it was arid desert biting cold.
It was really hard.
We were supposed to look sweaty and tired, which I think we do.
You do,
pull it off,
but
it was hard.
yes.
And then to lean on a cold car
Sorry.
while you have a conversation, it was a challenge.
I say it all the time that being funny when you're cold is the hardest thing to do because your brain is literally screaming at you to
you're in survival mode.
You're in survival mode. And your brain needs to be so relaxed and comfy, I think, to do really good comedy, personally.
I agree.
So to me, I'm like,
It's hard to be in a flow state when you're ice cold.
When your body's like, stop, end this. And I'm cold all the time. So it would be really difficult for me. It's incredible we do this pod naked.
I know. But that's the heat's blasting.
I know. I
what
can't
you don't
believe we
see,
agreed
dear
to
listeners,
this.
that I am sweating so much. They're fine. I'm sweating bullets.
It is. He's
this chair has
wiping
to
him
be
down.
destroyed when it's done.
It is a
Yeah,
wet
the beanbag
chair.
gets slippery.
It's slippery. It's like, I think it's pleather, right? So it's like not like absorbing
Is
it,
this
but-
pleather?
Yeah.
Oh, no, look at that. It's pleather.
Yeah,
It's well, they're calling it
Let me
vegan
feel
leather.
it. Yep, it's pleather.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I really, the moment where we reveal Jimmy is in the mailroom, it's really deeply emotional. And especially, who it's really emotional for is people who work for us who have been in the mailroom at these agencies.
Yeah.
They're like, they start screaming.
Yeah. A few of our writers started in the mailroom. Like Andrew Law worked at an agency.
I think Bridget did too.
I think Bridget did. Yeah.
Yes.
And they are famously very difficult places to work.
Yeah. And so I think for people to be like, oh my God, he went from having that baller office in season 1 to now he's in the mailroom of that same place. It's just a fall from grace. And I really hope Jimmy can get it together.
We'll see. We are so happy and so lucky to have with us today the genius, the one, the only, Adam Bricker, our cinematographer.
The
ASC.
incredible.
The incredible.
Incredible.
It's one of Adam's catchphrases. And you know one thing I'm going to say, just to set the table here.
Said it.
Not only is Adam so brilliantly talented and so kind and so decent, what a good person.
Yes. 3 sisters, Sarah, Hannah, and Elizabeth. Hi, guys, if you're listening, along with Barbara.
3 sisters, there you go. That's why. Well, and also very good parents, Jay and Linda, both of whom I've met, one of whom I've given COVID. It was an
And
accident.
the other one you got the COVID shot for.
Oh, okay, that's right. I did.
Yes,
Remember in New
yes.
Jersey. That's right.
Yes.
Saved a
Oh my
life,
gosh.
risked a life. But they're both with us and everything's good. He's also probably the most optimistic person on our set.
Yes.
The most optimistic, the most we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been so helpful.
Which came into
I
play
have
here in
said
this
that if I
episode.
could
You
have
look-
anybody's like mental outlook on the world, it would be yours.
She has said that.
If she could
I
have
love
anyone's
this.
mental issue, it would be yours.
Which is no issue at all.
which is the lack of
Exactly.
issue.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How do you
Yeah.
have such a positive? Where do you get your great outlook on life? Have you always been a very positive guy?
I don't know. I think I'm just confident that it's all going to work out.
You are.
You are.
Yeah.
You are.
It's crazy to be somebody who's shot every single episode of a series. That's like extremely rare.
Yeah.
Does that really happen?
It's definitely not typical. Often in television, a cinematographer is shooting just the pilot.
Yeah. Or first block or something
Wow.
like that.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
a deadbeat dad move, isn't it? Do the pilot and walk away.
No,
What
it's
the
just-
heck is that?
That would have
Family
been
friend.
so sad if you shot the pilot and then we never saw you again.
I know.
There's a little bit, if I may, get into the gossipina of the DP world, but
Oh, yeah?
it's almost like a tier of a DP will do the first episode or a block or something, and then other DPs will come and kind of replicate that DP's look.
That often happens. I think when DPs are alternating, there's often guest directors
Right.
coming in and you're paired with a
It's a
director.
different
and
kind
it's
of a
different.
show.
Yeah. This was sort of more like 6 years of a movie that we were all making together. You guys were there for every single frame.
Also rare.
Yeah.
Also
Very
rare,
rare,
yeah.
Also
yeah.
rare for television.
Yeah.
This was a very dedicated family affair,
Yes.
making the
Absolutely.
show. It is part of the reason I'm in such grief. I'm having like a lot of anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder manifestation, you know?
I'm up every night at 2 a.m. for
Well, you
hours.
are every day,
always
right?
are.
No,
Hour
but
and a
it's
half
worse.
night.
It's worse
Oh.
than ever.
Stressed about that the show is
Anxiety, grief,
Yeah.
tons of feelings.
Yeah.
It's just
Hunger,
It's just
sometimes
been
midnight
starting
snack.
to hit me because you know,
really?
I mean, behind the scenes, like we've been all together working on post for the show.
Oh, yeah.
and color and finishing the VFX elements, like, and now that's sort of winding down.
Yes.
I know.
Right.
And this is usually when we'd be going on our little summer break, but with the knowledge that you guys would be starting a writer's room, I'd be going to Europe, waiting for you guys to send me
Yeah.
a
Your
script.
life,
Right,
by the
right.
way, is better.
That is nice.
I guess so.
That is
Yeah, I picked a
nice.
good job. But then we would all be getting together again in the fall to.
Yeah.
Right. It would
Maybe
be
like
happening
texting you
so
ideas.
soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Can we do this? You know, should we be
Right.
writing this?
Speaking of which, the Cube.
The Cube.
Oh my God.
Look at him
Cube.
hosting.
I know.
Oh,
Excellent.
let's get on
Segueing.
track.
What a brilliant
Wow.
guy. What a brilliant guy.
brain.
The Cube. When you sent the outline for the Cube, we were given a heads up.
Yeah.
So, like, there's
What
this
was
thing
the
coming in.
first time you heard about this idea for the Cube?
I don't totally remember. I'm sure it was Nate being like, "How are we going to do this?" Nate, our producer, being like, "This is coming up. What are your thoughts?" I was excited. I was
You
like,
do
"Ooh,
like a challenge.
definitely."
And
It
you-
sort of reminded me of the ocean from season 4.
What
when
a
Deborah
challenge.
runs into the ocean in the middle of the night to save Ava.
Which Adam contributed to that actual concept as well.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
it's-
right.
Scouting and scouting and scouting for that.
Right. We turned over
Set piece.
many, many different options for how episode 6 of season 4 would end. And it was Adam who said, what if she runs into the
Drown
ocean?
her out.
Yeah, we were driving together after scouting. I think we thought initially it was going to
I'm
be an
so glad we
electric-
drove together,
Yeah.
honestly.
Well, I always have said I need you in the van.
I
And
know.
you do drive yourself to a lot of scouts. I said,
That
baby, I
switched
need you in
though.
the
That was
van.
originally because we started in COVID. I was like, I've got to protect myself.
Yes,
I
you
just
need
wanted
boundaries.
you
I
to
You
don't
need
hang out with
boundaries.
us.
No, I know. But this and then that seasons 4 and 5, I was in the van, and I
Yes,
think
you
that was
were.
really, really helpful.
I agree.
But I
Yes.
also love my own car.
Of
That's
course.
true.
Sure,
Podcast.
sure.
And he keeps it
Popping
so
on a
clean, dear
doughboy,
listener.
you know?
Let me tell
Absolutely.
you, this is a person who keeps this car meticulous and clean.
Mm.
I'm talking like chargers coiled in a bow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's really the
admirable.
cleanest car I've ever seen in my life.
Before hiring a DP, you want to look at their car.
Yeah.
I think it's
Honestly,
true.
it's
the
not
camera car
bad.
also incredibly
Yeah.
tricked out and beautifully pristine. It's really...
Tyler Gochner-Zoller has the most beautiful cart.
Let's talk about your cart for 1 second
Okay.
before we get into the
Yeah,
episode.
when we say
Yeah.
cart, let's explain what we mean.
Yeah, what
by
is that?
cart?
Yeah, so It's a DIT cart, and that is sort of my workstation.
And DIT stands for?
Digital Imaging Technician, which is Tyler's role, who's also worked on every single episode, every frame of the show Tyler's been there for.
That's
and
right.
it's sort of my workstation with Tyler where we can see all of the cameras. We can sort of live color correct them. We can adjust the stop on the lens remotely, adjust the ND. And it's sort of just like where I work because we shoot 3, 4, sometimes 5 cameras.
Now, let's talk about some of the innovation that I don't know if you've pioneered, but I feel like you have.
Okay.
There were 2 elements that were added to the cart this year that I found absolutely fabulous. One was the nanny cam.
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
Sure. The nanny cam, that was spearheaded by Tyler and our gaffer, Daniel McNutt. And that is essentially like a security camera that we put on a very, very tall stand so that I can see the set.
Right.
See the camera operators, see the lighting, see the actor's relationship to the lighting. That's one of the things you really lose, I think, as a cinematographer not operating, is having like an understanding of what's happening, what the relations are between those elements on set. And so this was sort of a way for me to sort of reclaim that a little bit. Oftentimes, we can just see the image, 3 cameras, and we're saying to our A camera operator, Joel Marsh, move a little bit to the left, and you don't realize that he's right up against this credenza or whatever it is. With the nanny cam, you can sort
on
of
our show, it's usually a credenza.
often a credenza.
That is a
yeah.
credenza.
And I think it really helped like orient myself when I was just looking at the image.
You got court
Or you
vision.
can see like, okay, like why isn't Jean catching the light in the way that I envisioned? Oh, she's actually blocked by this thing. And then you could go in and adjust if you needed to. So I think that was really helpful.
And the other thing was the iPad with the show.
Yeah.
And what that is there was an iPad at DIT in the corner playing the show's previous 4 seasons on a loop with no audio.
Tyler and I cut a super cut of all of the episodes sort of strung together.
They should play that in reverse conversion therapy to make people gay.
To make people gay to watch Hacks?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
tape your eyelids open and they play all 18 hours of Hacks on a loop.
And then they're going, why haven't they kissed if this is gay conversion therapy?
Right.
They're going, you're really edging us
I guess
here.
you know what it is? It's,
they have
it's
that?
bisexual conversion therapy.
Oh, well, that is what the show is.
The show is extremely bisexual.
And Robbie Hoffman did say that. She said every single person who works on the show is bisexual.
Yeah. Even the people who think they're straight are bisexual.
100%. By the end of the day, they are.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how I move through the world. Male or female, people looking at me going, okay, I'd take a bite. Anyway, all right. So having the show on loop was so helpful because sometimes we saw, we used to photograph the room in this way, or let's return to that motif, or we've done that, we shouldn't do that again. There were just so many things that it was like so helpful.
In the past, the iPad would play visual references that I wanted to keep in mind. A lot of these were from our original, like 6 years ago, the first lookbook that we put together for what the show would be. And I would cycle those through on like an iPhoto slideshow just to keep them sort of top of mind.
Right.
And it was really nice for me to have those like right next to what I was shooting.
Yeah.
And then eventually, as we worked on this forever, like the references went away and the show itself became the reference. So I think like I started in season 3 probably playing my favorite images from 1 and 2. And then it naturally just progressed into like, okay, well, why not? We have enough content here. Let's do the video. Let's watch the show.
The show became the reference. It gives me goosebumps. I love
Yeah.
it.
And it's nice because then it becomes
Wow.
cohesive. Like when you're thinking about how you're going to light or shoot a new set, a new place you've never been before, instead of looking up a reference on Shot Deck for somebody else's movie and finding how they did it, you're like, okay, well, what if it looked sort of like this bar that we did back in season 2? It's like top of mind.
Yeah.
And I think it all just made the show and the look of it very cohesive. And that's something that I'm very proud
I
of.
always loved seeing what you had pulled for the reference from the show of like, oh yeah, season 2, this is in the similar vein of what we did in that scene or whatever.
I think it's in its best form, it's like all answering itself.
Yep.
It's like, why is something sad? It's because it looks like a sad moment in season 2. Like there's like, you're drawing these parallels across the seasons so that they all interconnect in this elegant way.
Wow.
Like a Swiss watch.
I mean, the level of thought. And the level of invisible work that people don't even always appreciate. Hopefully they do. Hopefully they're blown away by how cinematic and beautiful the show looks.
Well, I think you guys did a great job of like this balancing being prescriptive with things and then also giving a lot of your collaborators a ton of creative freedom to sort of express themselves and to find their own voice in it and to do their own little projects within the show. Like I've loved working on it. It's been just like a wonderful like collaborative relationship. And the thing I've loved most is that freedom that I could do my own thing with the trust that if I had a misstep or wasn't totally sure, you guys would be there to correct it. It's very freeing.
Well, I will say the show would not have happened without you. You protect the show more than anyone else, even more than us. There are times that we're like,
there were times we're like, fine. fine.
well-
We'll just do this shitty location. And you'd be like, no, guys.
And
so-
actually, I want to give a shout out, even though I don't want to betray what happens in the end. Adam checked the weather in a way that was like so helpful for the end, for,
last
for the
shot.
finale. And the last shot, we moved the day, and it was because of Adam.
We
Yeah,
shot
it
it
was
once and
stressing
it
me
wasn't
out.
really the best day. But we planned, we were like, we're going to come back. We have
Yeah.
to come back. And thank God, because the weather was much better.
And that happened
Yeah.
a lot, that Adam would say, I just need you guys to consider this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would go and fight the good fight to try and make it happen.
Yeah.
And
Or
yes,
in a,
And not
sometimes
always
we
did it
could,
work, and
sometimes we
Right.
couldn't.
you know.
Yeah, or in a great way, we're always trying to write visually and make the show look and the scenes in the most exciting places they could be. But sometimes you would look at a script and go, hey, this is just like them sitting in a room talking too much. Like, is there, you would push us to think sometimes about different ways to envision these scenes in a way that was very, very helpful and very appreciated.
Could you put them in a Bugatti racing around the track? And we'd say, sure. Let's try.
episode 6, for example, like they weren't always sitting at the pond at the end of that episode, Deborah and Ava, when they talk about the post AI discussion. And that came from all of us being like, how could this be better? How could this be more visual? How could this be more cinematic?
Now, speaking of cinematic, in episode 8,
Yeah.
we, in conceptualizing it, kind of were like, well, it's almost a bottle. This woman's trapped in a cube. That's going to be easy.
Well, I don't think we ever thought it was going to be easy.
Okay, we didn't, but at least we thought it was one location. But it became probably the most complicated episode that we ever made. Is that
Well,
right? Would you
certainly in
guys
a
say?
technically,
technically.
The most technically ambitious by
definitely.
far, right?
Yes. Some of the layers that were really complicated is the lights on version and the lights off version.
Right.
Because so much of the lights on version was done practically in Las Vegas. And then mostly all the lights off version was shot on our stage, where we replicated a lot of the ground and some of the walls of that street
Yeah.
and shot it that way. And then, of course, we had to comp gene in both lights on and lights off in the cube in both Vegas and then in the stage version.
Yeah, each shot essentially has 4 or 5 elements, which is
Yes.
what makes it really complex. There was a lot of discovery in how we were going to do this, a lot of discussion, a lot of debate about what the best approach would be. And I think we sort of landed on a really good one. What was wonderful is that you guys were really dedicated to shooting this on Las Vegas Boulevard.
Yes.
And making sure that it was on the strip and that the location matched the spectacle of the event. And then, but that posed this issue of, Las Vegas Boulevard is very, very bright and famously busy, difficult to control. So how are we going to take Las Vegas Boulevard and turn the lights off?
Right. Though weirdly, in my remembering of it, it was actually not that bad shooting the Vegas parts of it.
The biggest parts of it were great.
Because I think we thought it was going to be so loud and disruptive,
Totally.
and actually
It wasn't
was
too
okay.
bad.
Shooting in
great.
Las Vegas is an absolute dream.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yes,
It
it's
is
just
really
a great
lovely.
city to shoot in. They were so wonderful to us. So
Right.
the fact that we
Yes.
couldn't turn the lights off on Las Vegas Boulevard, that meant that we had to rebuild Las Vegas Boulevard at Universal Studios in LA on a soundstage to scale. And that way we could shoot all of the scenes of Ava and our wonderful magician like on our stage so that we could sort of build like a night sky and not have to contend with all of the blinking lights of the Vegas Strip.
Right.
Could you
And we
imagine?
could do this blackout. So we take the street stuff that we shot at Universal, and then the challenge becomes, okay, well, you're on the street, the cars would still be moving, there would still be traffic, they
Right.
would have headlights.
Right.
Like how do you do that? So we then shot those same frames, the VFX team shot those same frames on the actual street in Las Vegas.
Wow.
And they comped in the street. Deanna McNutt built this awesome rig at Universal that sort of like replicated what the headlights would be doing. There's like traffic moving by. You see the interactive lighting on our characters. An occasional like police car would cruise on by. All that stuff to really ground it and make it feel real. And then the third element is the CGI Las Vegas blackout, which Martin Hall and his VFX team built sort of from the ground up. They took scans of the boulevard and then were able to take these sort of iconic locations, the Flamingo, Caesar's Palace, and then CGI black them out. And then the fourth and final element was Deborah Vance in the cube, which we shot on a separate stage because it needed to be tall enough in a fully blacked out environment. And I don't know, the cube was cool. It was like
really
an
cool.
actual cube. It wasn't
that's-
fake. It
that's
was
the
like
thing.
several tons.
We should say that Rob Tokarz and his team did build this cube, this plexiglass cube, which
I don't
Adam
think it was. I
designed
think
the
it was.
lighting.
I don't know if plexiglass is the right word. It was
Yeah,
something more.
it was
like
something
refined,
crazy.
something
heavier.
fancier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, an
Bulletproof-
engineer had to be
bulletproof glass.
involved
Oh,
to
yeah.
make
Oh,
sure
yeah.
that it could like suspend that
But
Gene could
was
safely
Gene
stand
was
in it.
suspended in a
Yes.
glass cube. So
Yeah.
this is real. You can hear
I mean,
the
how
echo.
many feet up was she? 40?
Yeah.
She
We
was
raised her up
very
on
high.
chain motors.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
wild.
And
We put
It was scary.
National Treasure Gene Smart up in a damn cube.
Remember when they were
yeah.
like, we just need you to know that if she has a panic attack up there, it's going to take a little while to bring her down and to unrivet it. And they like
Yeah.
told us like how they were like,
Right.
it's going to take 7 minutes if she has a panic attack. She's never had a panic attack on her side. She's been
Right.
Well,
fine.
but I can understand why they said that because
course.
putting someone in a cage and then hoisting them into the air
And
is
I think it was really the
anxiety-inducing.
fact that when it came down, she'd have to be unbolted.
The bolting part is what's giving. It's like reminds me of when our son, like a year ago, is we put him in his crib and he's saying, "I am feeling captured," because he still had a top.
Yeah, she was
still
in
has
a-
a top
in a-
into his crib.
a big old crib.
Yeah, she was in a big old crib with the tent
That she
locked
can't
in.
get out
But she was great. She was
course.
totally fine.
Yeah,
She was
she's
doing it in
I was like,
heels.
she's never had a panic attack. I've had hundreds.
I
You should be
know.
worried about me over here.
That was also Paul and Meg's final scene was
Yeah.
shooting on the strip in Las Vegas.
Yeah. We have some fun footage of that. I wonder if we can play some of Meg's rant.
Yes, I bet you can. Okay, this is how Meg felt about leaving the show.
Nobody else is good at making shows except for you guys. And every show sucks besides our show. Now I have to think of working with other people. And I hate all the scripts and everything I get sent sucks. Nobody knows how to write except for you guys.
Have you seen this
Wow.
meme that we all love, and I think Hannah posted it recently, but it's so true to us. It's of this Boston College basketball player, and it's a press conference after they just lost in the
Okay.
NCAA tournament, and they were like, "What are you going to miss the most?" And he like starts crying, and he puts his
Aw.
head down for like 20 seconds, and then he puts his head up, and he goes, "Going out to eat."
Yeah.
Going out to eat. And it's so true.
That is
But isn't
sweet.
that partly, how do you feel? Isn't that part of what you're going to miss the most? Of course,
Yeah.
making the show, but
Oh.
Yeah. Making the show, like us all being together at Village
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
doing it. We've been so lucky to make the show in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
And that's meant that we've all gotten to have families and spend time with our families, and you wouldn't trade that for anything. But the few moments where we have gone on the road are really special
Yeah.
because then you're with the whole squad and you're all going to the bar, you're all going out to dinner after.
Mhm.
So we've
Yeah.
gotten to dip our toes into that, and that's
So
really
fun.
special and
It's like
fun.
camp
Yeah.
vibes. It's
Yeah.
really-
It is.
Yeah.
It is like
Oh,
going,
we're so
like,
lucky.
it's like being a team that goes on like away trips, and it's
Yeah.
like, let's go have
yes.
fun. And
yes.
yeah. And you have like a like built-in group of friends.
Totally.
We're going to continue to work together, right?
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
Please.
yeah. This is just a hiatus.
We were going to retire, but the idea of getting the gang back together is
I
so
know.
delicious that we
I know.
have to keep going.
gotta-
well,
gotta
I've always
keep it-
said that the next thing you guys do is going to be better than this.
You,
Wow.
He
I'm
says
glad
that
it's on
so
the
much,
record.
and it's so nice. That confidence is so nice. And
I
you
really
love
believe
that
it.
confidence.
That's very sweet.
I mean, I think that we've all like come so far as filmmakers making the show, like grown so much.
There's just a special alchemy we all had in making the show together that, of course, we hope to,
Recapture one day.
yeah, or continue to make really powerful work. But it's a little bit lightning in a bottle, and so you can never really know. So it's been really special to have you on this journey with us.
Yeah, thank
and be
you.
a part of the journey.
Integral part of the Hacks family.
Mm-hmm.
Highlight of my career.
I mean, people wouldn't see a frame without you.
Other DPs leave the cap on.
I've actually seen it. I have seen it.
That's what happened at the end of Sopranos.
Oh, don't spoil it for our listeners, Barbara. Don't worry about it. Just you should watch
Barbara
anyway.
famously has not gotten to the end of Sopranos.
She's seen all except for the last one. She doesn't
except
want
for
it
the
to end.
last one. She's like, I'm savoring it.
Well, now she can.
Sorry, Barbara.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
being
Thanks for being
here.
here, Adam.
Thank you so much to Adam Bricker, ASC, for joining us today. And that is it for episode 8. This has been the official Hacks podcast with Jen Statsky, Paul W. Downs, and me, Lucia Aniello. The Hacks podcast is produced by HBO Max in collaboration with Same Boat Studios. Our executive producers are Gabrielle Lewis and Barry Finkel. Our senior producer is Emmanuel Hapsis. This show is mixed by Hannes Brown, and our technical director is In-Sung Huang. Special thanks to Michael Gluckstadt, Allison Cohen-Sorokach, and Kenya Reyes from the HBO Max podcast team. You can watch all of Hacks on HBO Max, and I hope you do. We'll be back next week to dig into episode 9. Until then, gird your loins.
I wouldn't even know how to begin to be a contemporary Deborah. I'd have to get a new breastplate, rethink my padding, tits to taint.